met in the place that was intended for us to meet. I think it's a big parade in Brussels. It's called the Zinneke Parade. I was working in social affairs at the time. I was with youngsters around here.
Social services.
Yeah. And Bernard was here with his squad, and I saw that guy pulling like a tray full of beer. And he has made for that occasion the first Zinne beer actually. We just exchanged our telephone numbers, and this guy called me, oh, I'm planning to start a brewery, and that's how we met again actually.
Zinne beer was designed to be special Belge, kind of light amber beer without too much bitterness. Zinne beer has changed a lot in 3 years. It doesn't look like it was before.
We have now 54 EBUs bitterness actually. It comes I think from 20 or something like this.
We decided to brew Terrace Bulba. We had a precise idea of what should Terrace Bulba be. At the first brew, it was done. We just created for drinking something ourselves.
You need to brew something that you want to brew, and something that nobody else is making.
The intention was to make a very light beer, but full of taste and quite bitter, for having something thirst quenching after a hard day of work. Working in the brewery is something very hard physically speaking, and after that you can't drink a triple, 9 degrees, whatever, lots of esters. We don't want that, certainly not. So we want something light but with a lot of taste, and this is Terrace Bulba.
But that's also your philosophy about beer anyway. I mean, you've always thought this.
It's our philosophy, but day after day we see that people in Brussels are following our philosophy. I'm in Brussels, in US, also in Spain. That's amazing for us that we design a beer for ourselves, but people are following us. They really appreciate what you do. And
I think that more and more people, of course it's not the majority, will it be one day, I don't know, but more and more of them, they're just fed up with the sweet, strong beers actually. Too much spices with fruits or so-called fruits which are just aromas. They want to go back to the roots, to what a beer should be. Beer in Belgium has always been or sour or bitter and very light in alcohol. And just to give you pleasure, and actually you want a beer, you want not to drink one beer in the whole evening, you want several of them.
You want to talk about politics or anything you want to talk about, or what we're talking about. And
if you are drinking 2 or 3 very strong beers, you're totally loaded, you're smashed, you're finished. So
the next day you say, I said stupid things, I can't remember what they were. Well, Yvan, we should talk about your years as a beer geek, what that was like and what you thought, and then how did you change?
I was almost raised with beer. I could drink beer. It was table beer at the time, very low alcohol beer. When I was 3, actually, which will sound crazy for the US people, I know, but it's legal here. It's better than Coca-Cola, I guess. Then I stopped drinking beer, and I did it again when I was just a teenager.
When you talk about table beer, you mean beer that's 2%?
Yeah, 1.5, 3 at most actually. When I was a teenager, I started drinking again just to be drunk like any stupid teenager. Then I started to discover the special beers, what Michael Jackson called the classics, which were good at the time. Then in 1989 I went to Cantillon Brewery for the first time. And it was a total shock actually. I could discover there that there is something behind just drinking a beer, that there is a whole world of values, and that beer is not just beer actually, it's much behind that actually. And so that was like a shock, and I said to myself, okay, I have to discover that whole world because it's very interesting, and behind each beer you have people working and they have their own values, and I want to meet that actually.
What changed you from being a beer geek to a brewer?
The fact that most of the big Belgian breweries making so good beers before changed their recipes. They, as we would say in French, they cut the angles to make the beers more easy drinkable.
They cut corners, we would say.
All right.
Yeah.
So they made the beer less bitter, sweeter, very fruity, etc. So I said to myself, okay, if I want to have a good beer, I have to make it myself.
Bernard, when did you start liking different styles of beer or appreciating beer that was more complex and interesting?
Well, the first complex beer I taste, and the one I still want to reproduce, is an old red Flemish beer, sour red Flemish beer. That's what we intended to do with the Crianza, to make a reddish sour beer.
And the Crianza is Zinne beer, but in oak barrels? People think that Belgian beer is big, strong beer. They don't think about things like you're talking about, what you're making now so much. That's what I'm interested in, is that how you're really changing the whole way of thinking about Belgian beer.
We didn't invent anything new, actually. We just go back to the roots because the beers were like this. And actually I think it's quite easy, and it will never end, that sort of competition to have the strongest beer possible. I think that finally, well, you can just reach 100% of alcohol and that's it. Well, is it still a beer? I mean, we will try to make the opposite competition. We'll try to have almost 0% of alcohol and full of taste someday, I guess. This is much more interesting. Of course, I'm joking, but this is basic idea.
How do you know that the beer was always, actually, until recently, not so strong and very hoppy? And
because I'm a book geek and I'm collecting those old brewing treatise book, and it's just written on them. And also when you talk to the old brewers, this is very important and interesting source of knowledge, of course. And they will all tell you that the beers in the past were quite low in alcohol. In the past, beer was mainly drunk just to hydrate yourself, you say that? To hydrate?
Hydrate's good, yeah.
It was the first
you needed
purpose
water
for beer, because water was dangerous, and the people, they could drink sometimes 8, 9, 10 liters of beer a day. There are old records of that, for instance, in the monasteries. The daily consumption of a monk, the average in Europe, was 8 liters a day. Of course, it was not a triple, it was a light beer actually. And of course, sometimes strong beers were made for the guests, for the rich people sometimes, but they didn't
maybe
drink
for
that.
A special festival or something too.
Yeah, or fest, but they didn't drink that every day and all day long. It was light beers that was the noble beer actually.
Is it easier to make a strong beer?
It's more easy to balance a strong beer because of that warmth that comes from alcohol.
You put more grains, so you have more flavors, you have more alcohol, which gives also flavor. So, well, it comes naturally. It's much more difficult to make a light beer, which is tasteful, actually.
Because you have to work with nothing. You have to make a good beer with almost nothing when you
with mainly water.
Beer.
You've made Stouterik, which is a stout of about
4.5.
That would have been a style that you would see all over in Brussels.
Exactly.
Normally in the old days.
We got we got a so nice compliment from Jean-Pierre, head brewer of Cantillon Brewery. He told us when he sampled it this first time, "Wow, this is a stout that I drank every day when I was young." Actually, we were so proud of that. So we just could find that old kind of local taste. Actually,
you're not making a style exactly like it was.
No,
but you're making a beer that you...
It's just an inspiration we get, but we don't want to copy exactly, and actually it's impossible. The brewer who tells you I'm copying a beer that was made 100 years ago is just lying to you. It's just impossible. Everything has changed, the raw materials, the methods, the shape of the kettles, everything. But you can get close and get some inspiration and make something new actually. And that's how the past is the base of the future.
Is there a name you could give to the style of Taras Bulba? Is it something that comes from history, or just again, it's the beer you wanted to make, but you think that there would have been a lot of beers that were like that in the old days?
It's quite close to a modern saison actually. It's only modern on one way, is that it's 2 strains yeast actually. The old saison. They took the yeast from the previous batch, lots of different yeasts, including white ones, some bacteria, and then...
so the beers would have been sour?
After a while, because it would at first ferment in like an ale, main fermentation, then it would go into wooden barrels and have suddenly what would be called positive infection with more wild yeast, wild bacteria, etc. I have evidences that some of the saison brewers of the NO region, they ordered lambic of the Brussels lambic brewers to make blendings with a fresh beer and blend it with an old lambic to give a wine-like taste actually and sourness, because that was a must in the past for the customers, for the Belgian customers. It was called what in the book you will find as the taste of North, le goût du Nord, and North was all the north of France, Bière de Garde, and all Belgium actually. It was the same taste, sourness, and wine-like flavors in the beer.
Do you think that people are understanding now the idea of beers that are complex interesting, but not high alcohol?
More and more, but we have, and this is the basic job of a brewer, I think. We have to educate the people's palate, the people's taste. Not that they are stupid, but in the past it was made in the families, maybe in school also, because you could get those table beers that were honest beers and not Coca-Cola and all that crap. And so it's our task now to educate people's taste, actually.
You think you're going to change the beer world?
We want to, actually.
I hope you do, but...
Not because we are smarter than anybody, but we just know for sure that those tastes bring you much more pleasure, actually.
Do you find that people sometimes don't like when you say, it's a higher taste, higher level of taste?
That's right, but it's up to us to have arguments.
Are you afraid of that very much?
Not
being
really.
An arrogant bastard?
Not really. If you always stay at the level of the common knowledge, you never go ahead, actually, and you are just like in the hands of the big companies who want to manipulate you. It's just avoiding manipulation, to think more about the taste and why there is a problem with only sweet taste, etc.
Being a brewer, you can also explain to the people what your tastes are without being arrogant.
If they just look at you and you really enjoy a beer which is a bit bitter, they will think about it. Oh, why is this guy liking that? And they will try, and it's a good way also. For the bartenders, if we have a bartender who drinks good beer, all the clients will drink good beer. They are the first educators. They are on the front line of the fight. And we have more and more of them in Brussels, hopefully. We have very nice bars, like I'm thinking about Moederlambic, Puschenellekulder, those kind of places where the people are really also willing to change the taste of the people.
Those places have suddenly had the opportunity to buy beer like this, which they never had before, and suddenly you see these people very enthusiastic who are reacting positively to having those beers, and then turning around and telling everybody that this is what you should be drinking.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And once again, they just do it because they have more pleasure themselves by drinking those beers, and they just want to share pleasure. I think that being a brewer is also wanting to share pleasure with people.
You are right now not brewing in your own brewery.
We rent another brewery for the moment. It will still last for 1 year, and hopefully in the next summer, so it means August 2008, we'll be in Brussels. We'll have our location in Brussels city itself, so we will become with Cantillon the second Brussels brewery.
We knock on wood.
That's in our dream, but concretely it will be August, September, and so we'll become the second Brussels brewery with Cantillon. I think we'll work very close.
There's only one brewery in Brussels right now, and that's Cantillon.
Yeah.
They will work on the sour side. We will work on the bitter side, so we'll complete each other, I think.
Do you think there's any problem, I don't know, philosophically working in another brewery?
It's not a philosophical problem. It's a practical problem. Things happen very good with those brewers. I think we are getting along very well, because it's something very hard to make, to share a brewery. That's very, very difficult. So I think we can
it's
we
like
can
sharing
say that
an apartment, actually.
yes, that thing happened very well. But they've their own rules, like anybody has. So we have to respect those rules. And
you have tasks, and Yvan takes out the trash, and you wash the dishes and everything.
Exactly.
I know how it works.
That's how I grew up. Talk about what happens in bed, please.
Yeah, no.
You won't know.
But we look forward to having when you have your own brewery.
Not as much as we do. It will be a new life for us, actually, and we will be able to do exactly everything we want. He's an early bird, I'm a late bird. That's why we can work easily together, actually. He will always start the brewing process, and I will always finish it.
Very good.
Sometimes we meet in the brewery.
Yeah, it happens.